Hi everyone, thank you for joining virtual coffee meeting with Professor Danielli. And today we have our colleagues and faculty advisor Professor Mata and our honorable speaker, Donatella. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So yes, Professor Donatella is a professor in Arizona State University. She did her PhD from Purdue University. Would like to hear about your journey in mathematics. How was it, and if any struggle you faced, how did you overcome it, or any kind of career advice for us? It would be very helpful.
Okay, so how much time you have? No, I'm just joking. So my journey in mathematics started a very long time ago, longer than I care to remember at this point. My PhD is 1999, but I started grad school in 1991. So it took me some time. I like to blame my kids for that. I don't know if that's completely fair to them, but I started grad school. I was pregnant with my first, and then two more during grad school, and the last one during my first year of tenure track. So it's been at the time it was an unusual journey. I didn't know many. So let me backtrack a little bit. When I did math in my undergraduate years in Italy, I did not notice, sparsity of women. In fact, the vast majority of my classmates were women. What I didn't know at the time is that there was a glass ceiling for women in academia, especially in the STEM disciplines, but I just wasn't paying attention. I was not attuned to this. And as I said, my cohort, we were mostly women, so why would I worry about it? And to some extent, this was also true when I moved to the United States. There was certainly a difference in numbers, but Purdue at the time, I think, was ahead of the curve a little bit in the sense that there were a few faculty members who were women. There were several graduate students who were women. So I wouldn't say that I felt isolated in that respect. It was not a lack of peers or role models, but my circumstances, personal ones, were very different from anybody I knew. I definitely didn't know anybody who was raised in a family while being, beginning graduate school. And especially still at the time, the current or most common advice was that you should wait to have kids after you got tenure. So it was kind of discouraging to me to hear that, because I didn't know, will I be able to juggle everything? And the answer is no, you're never able to juggle anything, but you do the best you can. But anyhow, somehow I managed, and somehow means that I had a lot of support from my husband, from my advisor. I was lucky in that respect, that I had a supportive community around me, and even at Purdue, I never faced, many of the issues that you would hear people report in terms of discrimination, of, putting down or not being valued. I don't think that for the most part that those apply to me. So I was very fortunate in that respect. But I think, no matter what your personal circumstances are, pursuing a PhD in mathematics is always a struggle, for at least for the majority of us. It's a lot of work. If it's a different world, many of us go to places we do not know. So, I'm not saying that I had it more difficult than others by any means. We all come with that. And one thing that I've learned through the years actually is not to judge books by their cover, because most of the times you don't know what people have going on behind the surface, what you see in their lives. But so I got my PhD, got a postdoctoral position at Johns Hopkins. I was there for 2 years. a year and a half actually, because in the midst of my postdoc with my family, we moved to Sweden for a semester to participate in a special program at the Midland Leffler Institute. And that was another, something that I look back and said, I must have been crazy to think of doing that. But somehow, again, I don't know if the kids really enjoyed it, but they were too little to be actively, opposing that. Those are things you cannot do when they are older. And then I went back to Purdue as a faculty member, stayed there until very recently. I just moved to Arizona in January. So to take on not only, it's a new place, but it's also a new role because I'm in an administrative position, which is something that I had not done before. So I'm yet another challenge, although different from others. So it's been an interesting journey. So the difficulties, as I said, that there have been many obstacles, many times when I thought that this was too much, but I'm very persistent, or some would say I'm very stubborn. And so I, pushed through. Again, as I said, I didn't do it alone. There's been, support that I had from my loved ones. I don't know what else I can tell you in such general terms, but if you have more specific questions, of course, I'd be happy to elaborate more.
Okay, I have one question, like, how did you choose that your career path would be academia? Or did you ever try or have been interested in industrial job?
No, let me backtrack. After I at my undergrad, I applied for a few industry jobs, but they were not really of interest to me. They seemed very disconnected from the math I learned in college. They were much more of either sales. At the time it was very different times. I don't think that math graduates were really appreciated, especially in Italy. But I don't know what the situation was in the US at the time, and it's not relevant anyhow. But so either you would go into the more applied software programmer. Computer science was a very new discipline at the time, so mathematicians in applied math would usually take that role. But that's something I didn't really have much of an inclination for. I just like studying math, and so it seemed like pursuing a PhD was, something I could do to keep studying and doing what I liked. I didn't start thinking about an academic career probably until late in college. I didn't even know the math professor actually did research, believe it or not. I thought they were just there to teach. Once I started my PhD, I don't think I ever considered anything else. I guess I would have if, options were not available, but I like teaching, I like math. It was just, it's a dream job for me. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to pursue what I like.
Great. Does anyone else have any question?
Do you have any advice for grad students, like starting postdocs or sort of changing gears a little bit?
I didn't get the last thing you said.
Oh, just like transitioning from grad school into something else, like a postdoc or.
Sure. It's a scary time because until you're in grad school, you're depending, of course, on your advisor. This may change, but you feel you have some. You're under somebody else's wings, and when you take the postdoc, then you start walking on your own to some extent. I would say that the most important thing is to make sure, if you can choose, because sometimes you can't, and that's also a reality, especially this year and with the difficult circumstances we're dealing with. There may be less options available than normally there would be. But if you can choose, I would try to do some research on the postdoctoral mentor. I think it's very important. They can sometimes really make or break a career, in the sense that if you're a very independent person, it doesn't matter that much. But if you still feel that you need some guidance and that you're not ready to tackle new problems, one thing that's very important, I think, is to try to branch out from your thesis problem. Certainly, you have acquired a lot of expertise and knowledge about one specific problem, so you want to continue to work on that and, continue have the investments pay out. But in terms of longer term academic jobs, I think that what the future employers may look at is, have you been able to differentiate yourself from your advisor? They don't want just, a younger version of what your advisor may have been doing or suggested to you. So you really need to start thinking about other related problems. Don't keep working just on one thing. You may go very deep, and that's very good, but unless it's an extraordinary result, if they are just relative improvements in what you've done, they're not going to play very favorably by themselves. They can be a body of work that you're building, but I think you also need to start branching out in different directions. And that's where the postdoctoral advisor may play an important role. If you're able to do that on your own, that's great, but sometimes it's difficult. Where do I start looking for problems? If you have someone who can guide you and share some of their problems with you, it's much better. And especially if someone that takes, your future and your career at heart. It doesn't always happen, but I've seen really postdocs who go in a place where they have no mentor, when they have even no one who works in the same area. They take the job maybe because the institution is more prestigious, maybe not just because they didn't have any other choices at that point. It's a moot point. If you don't have another choice, you want to stay academia, you take whatever you have. But sometimes I've seen people choosing, the more prestigious institution or the better teaching load or these other factors, but then being very isolated without anybody to talk to. And in the long run, it's not a winning strategy. Again, it may make you stronger, but it may also break you. And that's a risk that you want to keep in mind. So, and then how do you know if a mentor is good? Well, you look at their record, at their track, right? You look at how many students have they had. Maybe it's more difficult to find information about postdoctoral mentees, but the rule of thumb is that if they're good graduate advisors, they're probably also good postdoc mentors. So you see how many students, this is more easily available on the internet, right? How many students have they had? What happened to those students? That if you can talk to some of them, or someone who knows someone and have some more first-hand information, even better. But at least some basic research can give you some ideas. And of course, the research work that they do, if something that interests you or not. That's also important, because it's very hard to work on problems where you don't have the inclination or you don't like them. But again, this is an ideal world where you have a lot of choices. Sometimes you don't have that many choices, and so you have to make the best with the circumstances you have.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Maybe I can ask a question. Who was your PhD advisor, Donatella?
Carlos Koenig.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so that was another unusual thing, because it was not at Purdue. So, but it's a complicated story, but it worked out well.
And who was your postdoctoral advisor?
I was supposed to work with Joel Sprack, but we talked, but eventually I was also there for a short time, because 3 semesters is really, at least for me, it takes.
At Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins, yes. So yeah, but no, it was a good advisor in many respects. I just wish we did more from the mathematical standpoint. We discussed a few problems, but then nothing really, converged to a paper, which is okay. I still learned a lot of stuff.
I was just asking out of curiosity.
No. Yeah, it's also, at the time, at least at Hopkins, but in general, I think the concept of a postdoc was much more loosely defined in mathematics. In fact, mine was labeled an assistant professorship because they didn't have a specific postdoc label. There was an understanding that it was not a real tenure track and they were expected to leave after 2 or 3 years. But
yes, thank you.
Sure.
So getting job in academia, mostly when they look back for experiences from students, are they like having teaching experiences, these dissertation experiences, these are enough, or any?
Well, academia usually, although the boundaries sometimes are blurred, but academia can mean two things. It can mean research-oriented institutions or teaching-oriented institutions. So depending if you're looking at, at a research university, then your teaching qualifications are important to some extent. But I believe that what they really look for is your research. And so, what I've noticed over the years, and I've been in hiring committees for many, many years, there's more of an expectation now, at least from my perspective, that graduate students have something published already, which, or, at least for tenure track, maybe during their postdoc, but several years ago, many years ago, it was mostly based on the recommendation letters that you would get from your advisors and, people that were familiar with your thesis. So having a thesis was considered already enough. I'm not sure that that's the same still. So probably you want to have good teaching records, but a research institution is not going to hire you because you're a good teacher. That's the reality. They are more interested in what research you can bring, well, your papers are published, if you have funding or potentially can get funding. And these, again, it's based on your records and what other people have to say about your research. And in that optics, it's important that if that's the path you choose, and I'm not saying you should. I mean, it's the great thing about the PhD is that even sometimes we go in thinking that there is only one outcome out of that, which is a research job in a, in institution. Many find joy in having more heavily, teaching experiences or working in industry. I think the portfolio is really much broader than that. If you're thinking academic in terms of teaching, then I would say that that's, in a sense, the opposite. There will be in most research expectations, but very minimal. Most places, they still like their faculty to be involved in some research, but maybe more in the, not necessarily in theoretical math or applied math, but more in the teaching of math, or it doesn't matter. Usually the criteria are very broadly defined, at least from the cases I'm familiar with. Some places don't care at all, but most, they still like to say that their faculty publish a paper every so many years. But then your teaching evaluations and what you say about your teaching, so how you present yourself, are becoming very important. And now you will see also in the interview process at the research university, they will ask you to give a talk about your research. And of course, with that, they will also evaluate your teaching to some extent, because if you present well, or you don't, then they will also infer some judgment on how effective of a teacher you may be in the classroom. But most likely in a teaching institution, they will not ask you to talk about your thesis, that they will just, maybe assign you a topic and you will have to teach a mock class or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So one thing I would like to say, going back to academia in the research world, which is what I'm most familiar with, I think it's very important now more than it was maybe 10 years ago that you make yourself known. There wasn't much of an expectation, at least in my days. The students would go to conferences or present, or maybe go to conferences but not present at conferences, or interact with their peers. I think that the networking aspect of mathematics has become more important because so many graduate students now are very actively participating in conferences, not only attending but giving contributed talks. It's becoming much more predominant. So in turn, this means that more established faculty who may be in hiring committees know more graduate students. And it's as far as, everybody tries to be objective and to look at everybody with the same metrics. But if you've met someone who made a good impression on you, and you know that this person, has good results and can deliver a good talk and has talked to you about the research already, you have a connection, may make your case more interesting to someone rather than just seeing a file, which, looks good on paper maybe, but, does it tell the whole story? I think that just being able to communicate with people, have a larger network, and it takes, it's not something that certainly would come natural to me to approach other people I do not know. Maybe, fellow graduate student postdocs, yes, but going to talk to someone who's established already and someone just from their papers, it is difficult. I realize that to go up there and say I'm such and such and I work on this, but I think it's important. And if there's a reasonable reason to do that, something that can, just a question at a talk. I'm not saying that you should just go with your CV and give it to them and just advertise yourself, but just try to broaden your network and make sure that the people are aware of who you are and what you do, when you will be on the market and things like this.
Yeah, I think that's really nice advice.
It's more difficult now, of course. The past year has changed many things, and so the ability of do this. There are still, seminars and conferences which are virtual, and we are doing a virtual coffee time. But I don't know if it's the best we can do under the circumstances, and hopefully we'll go back to normal times. I'm a little worried personally about the future of conferences, because I can see administrators saying, you've done so well with virtual conferences for the past year. Why do you need to travel and spend all that time and take time off teaching when you can do everything from the comfort of your home? But hopefully, they will also recognize there is importance in human interactions, and that collaborating and talking to people is not the same thing that allotting a time, an hour on Zoom, and then you click off and you go back to what you were doing, and that's the extent. Some of the best relationship I've had, they were really cemented on the outside of like the dinner or the coffee time, or when you can talk to people and you are in the same place, you don't know anybody, so that's how you start discussing things. If you turn off Zoom and go back to what you were doing, I don't think it's the same thing, but we'll see. If you have the opportunity to do something in person, take it. And this sometimes means also being more proactive in finding money to do that. So, if you're lucky enough that your advisor or the department pays for your travel, that's great, but that doesn't always happen. So sometimes you have to apply for funding from the conference. The AWM has travel grants, the AMS has travel grants. So you have to do a little bit of research on how to support these opportunities if you cannot do it through your advisor or your department.
Yeah, we're hoping everything will be normal soon, hopefully.
Right.
I sort of have a question along those lines. Do you think that it would be important, or do you think like this will be common to incorporate like some remote learning strategies in the everyday classroom when, like, if things go back to normal?
Who knows? That's a question that I hear tossed around, many times, because it's I can give you my current perspective, which I think is shared at least by large public universities. They really want the students to go back on campus because otherwise they don't register. You know, why pay a lot of money if you're going to be taking online courses? There are many places where you can take online courses. So I think that, you know, the administration is really pushing for us to go back to everything back to normal. But on the other, at least that's, again, my experience here at Daniel State. I heard that Purdue is more or less the same thing, you know. Let's go back to teaching as we used to, which I'm saying it's a good thing because, you know, in-person experience is irreplaceable. But on the other hand, we were really forced to learn a lot, and, you know, technology-wise. And I think some things can enhance the way we did things. It's not because we were doing it before, it was necessarily the best way. I would hope that, you know, we can take some lessons learned in this past year or so and make ways to incorporate the technology, you know, so that maybe you can record the classes for your students while you're teaching them. And we have all these equipments in most classrooms nowadays have been equipped with some kind of recording devices. So, you know, I cannot always travel to all the conferences in the world. So if some offered the option of doing, you know, both in person and virtual, I think it would be great. But it's very hard to see what the future looks like. We are still in a very reactive mode, I think. You know, for instance, here at ASU, they're telling us, you know, plan for next fall, like everything is going to go back to normal, like the pandemic never happened. Will that be really possible? I don't know. You know, it depends what the cases will look like in 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is. What the CDC guidelines will be. You know, if they still ask us to be 6 feet apart, we will not be able to teach large classes because we don't have stadiums that we can, you know. So I think we're still very much reacting to things rather than thinking long term what our future will look like. We're just trying to adapt to the circumstances. I hope that we can take the best of what technology has to offer, not to replace everything, but to enhance what we were doing before. But as I said, I don't know. As everybody else, I'm just trying to take one day at a time and see how I can move past that. So can you tell me a little bit about yourselves? You know, what you're studying, what your goals are? I've been doing all the talking, so it would be nice to hear from you as well.
Right now, I'm third-year student in math department. I'm working with Professor William J. Layton. So it's more like numerical analysis and scientific computing section in the department. So right now I'm working on 3 projects. One of them might be my potential thesis, which is on convection or advection. You can say advection diffusion reaction equation. So which is the modeling is from chemical engineering department. So people worked on that, but we are trying to right now modify improved method for that to solve those type of problems and for more accuracy. And I'm working on another model, which is a turbulence model based on like Navier-Stokes equations. That's also, we are modifying the previous Smagorinsky model, existing Smagorinsky model, but we're modifying it and doing all the analysis for that. And another one I just started, that is solving initial value problem is very common. So in PDE, so we know that we use theta method. Then the theta method has like for different thetas, we have backorder, forwarder, and trapezoidal rule, right? So we are trying to add filter to that so that we have faster convergence and stuff. This is just the beginning. I think the last one is as Professor mentioned, it's not even a very innovative thing. It's just think of your class assignment. You should be able to do it in 1 month. So
I
last
see.
one is so last one is not that. Yeah, I'm also looking for, I mean, in future, probably I'll go to academia job. I have some experience in academia. I have been working as a lecturer in my country, Bangladesh, for 1 year. I also worked in USA also. I did my master's here from Florida International University. After that, I have been there for 1 year as an adjunct faculty.
Okay.
And then
So
I decided I'm not getting any younger. I should start PhD. So then I decided I should start PhD and came here in 2018. So yeah, right now.
So you're in your 4th year, 3rd year?
No, 3rd year, like 2.5 year. Yeah, to fall.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, fall 2019.
Well, you're pretty advanced. You're already working on many projects in such a short time.
No, just working. We have some milestone in our department, finishing some exams. So that's why I caught up really late. Yeah, that's all from me.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Abby, you might want to share what's your research and stuff. Yeah.
Sure, I can jump in. So I'm in my last year, which is why you're getting a lot of job market type questions from me. I'm in the mathematical biology group. I use like immerse boundary methods to model how like dynamics of DNA in a fluid. So yeah, I've spent the last several months like looking for jobs. It's maybe not a good year, but
it's not. I see it. Most places have cut down significantly on the number of positions they can offer, us included. So
yeah, but I've gotten. I was mainly looking at like let's say like liberal arts or primarily like 4-year institutions, undergrad institutions, for tenure track jobs, and I got a few interviews, but I think I'm going to end up taking a postdoc. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like despite the paucity of places, you've been successful in your search so far. So at least in getting something moved.
I'm very excited about the postdoc opportunity.
May I ask you where it is?
Worcester Polytechnic Institute.
That's in Worcester, in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, right outside Boston.
Yeah, no, I know it very well. I have a friend and colleague who was, I think, the chair. So I know that place very well. It's a great place.
Nice, yeah. So some of your advice about choosing the postdoc based on the mentor, I think, is kind of resonating. So I think it will be a good place.
And specifically to that institution, I think that it's a very good type of institution for a postdoc, in the sense that they have a very high research profile, but also they are very involved with their undergrads. So it's not just like an afterthought. We need to teach, but that's not really our main focus. The faculty are very involved with the students, so it gives you also a good teaching portfolio, I think, or activities that you would not normally get. So you can make a different choice, not necessarily, but it expands your option after you're done with the postdoc.
Yeah. I'm fortunate enough. I'll get the choice to teach or not, so that'll be nice. Yeah. I don't know if Benem or Ashi, you want to go?
I don't know if they're still.
Hi, my name is Ashi, and I'm planning to do my PhD under Professor Christopher Leonard in functional analysis. And currently I'm reading a lot of research papers in fixed point theory. And I'm in my 2nd year, so yeah, that's why I'm reading so many research.
Yes,
Yeah, and I'm planning to enter the academia field. Like after completing my PhD, I want to teach. I love teaching.
Great. So very somewhat different career stages in your graduate studies, and also research interests, sounds like. Not surprisingly, you have a very large department. So how many women do you have on, I feel I've asked you this, Marta, before, but I forget. How many women do you have as faculty or graduate students? How do you feel you're doing in that respect?
How many women we have on the faculty? 2.
Yeah, that's what I thought. There was not that.
Yes, there is Anna Weinstein and myself.
Right.
And of
How
course,
about grad?
Of course, we have a number of, teaching track faculty, as is usual.
Yeah, no, but I was referring to the tenure track.
Exactly. So the faculty.
How about the graduate students? Do you feel it's I mean, it's never big enough, but.
So, I have to, say the truth. I did not actually research the numbers, but from teaching courses, I see a bunch, especially the lower level where, it's sort of compulsory for students to take analysis 1. Also, there is many women.
Good.
So maybe Farjana knows the numbers. Maybe grad students. Grad students know exactly the numbers because
not the numbers, but just there's a difference between 2% and 50%. You can tell.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if it's 50%, but definitely.
I don't think it's 50%, but I have been into university in USA. Comparing to that, it's pretty handsome amount because I have been the only person in master's program. All of them are guys in my master program. So on my first day when I came here, first of all, I had so many cultural shock because I came from very developing countries, and then from here to here, and I joined my first class is all guys, only me. But here, I think I'm very happy to see there are more women compared to the old school I have been, and yeah, it's very welcoming environment for women.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and this organization, I think Professor Manta helping us to groom, to interact with other women also, especially in this crazy time. It's been helpful, I think, to interact with people.
Sure. How long have you had the chapter, the AWM chapter?
I think from the beginning I started my PhD, it was there. Abby was the president, former president, and then Grishma, another president. And then I started from the semester. So yeah, I think I have always seen this. I don't know when exactly it started, Professor Mata.
Not too long. So is it maybe the 3rd year? Abby, what
I think it's about 2.5 years.
Probably when I started my PhD. So
it's the 3rd year. So, yeah.
Well, it takes a lot. I mean, it's quite a bit of work. Of course, you can make it, as much work as you want. But at least what I've seen at Purdue, when we have had a chapter for 10 years now, in the beginning, it was a lot of work in the beginning because you don't know what you're doing. So, you start building the foundation up right from the ground. But then, then you see, we could do this and we could do that. And then it tends to become, a lot of work if you want to do it. The good thing is nobody's forcing you to do it, but usually there are good initiatives, so one feels compelled to expand the scope. So what else do you guys organize when what is your focus or your main activities?
We have first initial one of the attempt was mentoring undergraduate students. We first ask our graduate students if they're willing to mentor undergraduate students, especially for their career advice or how they're going to choose their research topic and everything else.
Sure.
So that was still going on. I think it's a very great initiative taken by, I think Abby was the first one to start mentorship program. So So yeah, we are continuing that, and in addition to that, we started a monthly seminar from this semester. So where we invite two speakers, especially current PhD students, whatever their research going on. So they come here and share. So we just did last month our first session. So no, this month actually. Sorry, this month, and we are going to have continue it like March, April, and May, and then we'll start again in fall, I guess. So
sorry to interrupt. So these are research talks.
Yeah, research.
By graduate students. Okay.
And we also, let me interject, we also have a YouTube channel. So those talks are recorded and then posted on the YouTube channel. Of course, based on the permission of the speaker, but I also think it's a very good,
very nice, yeah,
for graduate students, especially those looking for a job. Because, you know, they have their, it's a half an hour talk. It's a research talk. It must be own research. I mean, PhD student research. So, you know, when you are out there and looking for a job, looking for a position, then
it's a great idea.
On you. Your talk has been posted. So if you prepare it really well, in this, you know, it advertises you. That's exactly what we want to achieve.
Right. Well, great idea.
Yeah.
It's been started by Farjana. Farjana had this great idea, which I wholeheartedly embraced, and you know,
absolutely. No, it's a great idea.
We have
the seminar idea was initiated by actually our former president Grishma Palkar. She couldn't continue it because she did her master's. So she graduated last December, and so shared idea handed to us, and we tried to really give it a shape and started from this.
Let me maybe add that the speakers are not only students from Pittsburgh. So this is supposed to serve a larger students community, and indeed we have students from Indiana, from
India,
from University of Nebraska, at least at Lincoln, I think Iowa. I'm just speaking from the top of my head. We also had a lady from student from India. So, you know, we are getting international.
Sure, of course.
There is a larger community, so the calendar is full till the end of the semester, and then we are thinking about it.
So do you solicit the invitation, or do you send invitations, or do they contact you to speak? How does that work?
In fact, we you know, so far the speakers who are listed are, you know, I don't know how it worked, but students from our chapter.
I see.
No, they solicited, or somehow by their own connections.
Very nice. Very nice. Congratulations.
We've been getting emails. You know, I myself got an email just out of the blue from someone. Oh, I've seen you have this great seminar. Can we participate? And the same with Farjana. And then, you know, she forwards me this email. Oh, I got an email, you know, from someone. So it seems there has been a need. So this is, you know, I am speaking at length about that because maybe you have students that would like to, you know, at your university, or maybe at Purdue, that would like to use this opportunity.
Sure, no, definitely, I will pass it on. When that's another thing that, you know, I regret. I haven't had a chance to meet other than a few graduate students in Zoom meetings. You know, I was hoping to be able to have a coffee or a pizza or something, and it will come, but
the seminar has a web page, and as I mentioned before, we have a YouTube channel.
If you can please send me the link so I have it. I mean, I'm sure I can find it, but it's easier if
I'll send you all the information.
Thank you. I'll be happy to advertise it.
Yeah.
How many members do you have? Do you have an actual count, or just whoever wants to show up? How does that work?
Right now in Pittsburgh chapter, we have 12 to 13 members, I think. Yeah.
It's a good number. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Well, congratulations for starting it and for all the hard work. As I said, I know it takes a lot of time and effort to get something like this started off the ground. So.
Thank you.
I hope it will continue. It takes renewed energy. You know, every year you have to find someone who's willing to put the work in, and some years it's easier than others.
Yeah, hopefully we can continue our ongoing program, and time to time we will arrange a virtual meeting with professional like you, which will help us students to figure out their career path, or maybe advices will help them, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. That's all our activities.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Actually, our male colleagues also encourage these, and even they sometimes join in our meeting. You can see Benham is there, and
yeah, no, I know. It was the same.
Yeah.
It was the same at Purdue. In the beginning, it was only women, but then, you know, they started doing things that were really beneficial and interesting to everybody. So, you know, the men also started being involved, and I think that's great, because you know, it's really a joint effort to make women in mathematics more powerful. But it takes everybody to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all teaching remotely now, or are you on campus? How does that work for you?
Remotely for me, everything.
We technically have a hybrid system, but all TAs are teaching remotely. As far as I know, like vast majority of math professors are as well. I think it's just more if you have a lab, then like a physical lab, then you're probably on campus.
Yeah. Yeah, what I've seen is that a few faculty and TAs who are teaching in person here this semester, at least, some of them were basically forced to go fully online because the students just would not show up, since they were both modality, you know, all classes were required to be in both modalities. Even if it were labeled in person, there was a, you know, an online component. And so it seems like the students are happy to watch the lectures from their dorm or their apartment or wherever they are. But I'm sure it's been difficult to adjust to a completely new teaching modality when you're already, you know, trying to figure out your research, and it's a lot to deal with. It was the same for everybody, but at least, you know, for us faculty, in the big scheme of things, a month or 2 or 6 don't change a whole lot. Once you have tenure, I mean, but when you're a graduate student, every month counts, every year counts, and it's a bit, you know, besides everything else, but just the teaching itself, at least for me, it took a while to get used to, you know, a completely different way of interacting with the students and delivering the lectures and the technical problems. One time I forgot completely to record my lecture, so I had to start over and do it. You know, little things like that they can be aggravating. As we were saying before, maybe there will be lessons learned that are going to be useful in the future as well.
Yeah, I know for me, like teaching, well, it was nice when we finally got resources to teach remotely, as opposed to just like, you know, figure it out and see what happens.
Yeah. I know.
But yeah, it's I think the hard part is like for recitations, trying to get students involved. It's like it's already hard to get feedback from students, and now when you don't even see their faces, it's like pulling teeth to get them to say anything.
I know. Or you sit, I mean, office hours are not necessarily well attended in person anyhow, but when you sit in front of the computer where your Zoom screen open and nobody shows up, you know, it's, I know, it's not very rewarding. At least I enjoy teaching, but the reason why I enjoy it because I like the interaction with the students, and when those are minimal, it becomes just talking to a screen. It's not very fun.
Yeah.
You don't know if, you know, if they understand what you're saying, you know, if what you're conveying is going across or it's falling completely flat.
I can say I actually enjoy teaching remotely very much.
No, once I got the hang of it, I enjoyed it too, but there was a learning curve.
Yeah, so one thing that I request students is that they keep their cameras open. You know, of course, this as a rule, right? There is always an exception, something happens, then they turn the camera off. As a rule, we should strive to have as much experience as possible. Mm-hmm. And it was important for me to know that I'm talking to real people, not just, you know, computer screen. And I also think this is, in a sense, courtesy toward the speaker, right? Just to show them that you are there and that you react. Please show them your face.
Exactly. No, I completely agree.
Professional courtesy that you know, you don't just press the button and then
go on with your go on with your day without even paying attention to what you're doing. Yes.
Yes. So I say it, I make it clear, you know, again, that's not somehow a rule that is enforced, otherwise I fail them or something.
No, of course.
But I stress, I remind them, and this works. Like nobody's complaining. And because we record the class, the lecture, I think this is actually very beneficial to students, to those students that want to learn. At least it would be for me. So if I was a student, because sometimes, you know, you are attending class, even if the professor is really excellent and has a gift and experience in teaching well, it's all a new material for you. So you are jotting things, you are writing down, copying from the board, trying to listen, trying to orient yourself. Whereas when this is recorded, you can then come back to the movie and you can basically, you know, just listen to one sentence or one paragraph, stop, and what did the professor really say?
And let me think about it. Yeah, no,
continue. So this gives an amazing new opportunity and improves the students.
No, I completely agree. That's what I said, that I hope that, you know, we can take what's good with this and continue, also because it doesn't cost us anything more or different. Most classes are equipped now. So
I see that I agree what also, you know, Abby mentioned before, that this is problematic when it comes to recitations, when you are supposed really to interact with students, make them do problems, you know, talk to you, interact with each other. That's a different thing. So what I was talking about is about the lecture, you know, especially.
Right.
It's just a lecture. I have theorem proof, example, right? So I'm teaching on Zoom, I have a document camera and I write on paper as if I was writing on the board.
Right.
Explain everything, and students, you know, may ask questions, or they in chat box, they when I teach a large calculus class, when I teach a large calculus class, then I tell them, you know, not to interrupt and speak during the lecture, but they can write their questions in the chat box. I see those questions live, and as soon, you know, when I see the question, I just finish the argument and then I read the question aloud and answer that question. And then I ask, have I answered your question? And they say yes or no. When I test students, like right now I'm teaching a graduate course, so I have just a few students, of course, they are welcome to interrupt and to ask questions.
That's a different story, of course.
Yeah. So for lectures in mathematics, I actually think this is the fact that we record and this model.
No, I agree, definitely. But you know, also because you are a good teacher, you know, I've seen colleagues of mine just putting the notes they wrote 50 years ago on the you know, and just basically reading the notes. You know, that's not the way to engage students. But I assume those teachers were not very effective in person either. So
possibly, yes. But for recitations, and especially for younger students, you know, first year, freshmen, those calculus courses, that's an entire planet of discussion. So here I think that this interaction, really being there in the classroom with a teacher and interacting them, this cannot be replaced.
Yeah, but maybe a hybrid version of some sort. It's
Yeah, we really don't know what will happen in fall, so the university will decide and email us. We just have to follow that.
Yeah, it's a waiting game at this point and see what everybody decides to do. But hopefully, you know, if we can go back in campus, it means that the situation has gotten better, and so that's all what we all hope for.
So does anyone else have anything to say? Question or anything? If not, maybe we can stop our session at 5:45.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you.
Thank you so much for giving us advice.
As I said, I wish I could have met you in person, but hopefully there will be chances in the future. Hopefully. It was good seeing you, Marta.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.